I want to let Dr. Tiasan John, because he wanted to weigh in here.
Well, I was addressing a very earlier statement made as far as this question of marrying down. I was going to say, if you actually look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics data in 2020, from the age of 18 to 65, Black men actually earn more than Black women in terms of employed Black men. When you start factoring, when we really look at Black male poverty, a lot of that, unless we're talking about homeless or the unemployed, we're really talking about the impact of incarceration on those numbers. That's what really sets this aside. So Black men earn less than Black women when you factor in incarceration. But when you look at employed Black men, there's only about 1 million fewer Black men employed than Black women out of 43 million people. That's still a workable number in terms of marital options. Black men actually earn more. So this whole question of marrying down is, I don't really think, a genuine and honest question. I think the issue comes down to what we perceive as a marriageable Black male by many Black women. And unfortunately, a lot of that time that's influenced by media, where this whole thing about how much you earn, how much you own, so on and so forth, becomes the defining standard of what constitutes a marriageable Black male. Even if you earn more, it needs to be a certain amount. So one of the arguments that I hear people making is that you actually have a majority of women across race looking for a very small percentage of men. Now, the other point I wanted to raise about, I don't know his name. I can't see a tag on there.
Themis, and Brother Themis, I think is his name.
Themis. Okay. The other point he made was he pointed to the study on fathers and how inaccurately it was and how it's not being used properly. But prior to that, in this discussion, we were going off just gut opinion. So I'd like to know if you have an alternative study. Question on how we're talking about Black men keeps going back to caricature and stereotype, when the subject is actually supposed to be Black women's ego. So we keep having the same gesture. It's like having a martial arts battle with the person who's doing the same move over and over, and we keep coming back to the same issue and not dealing with the subject. We keep derailing and deflecting and I argue, even when men engage in this, it's part of how we've been socialized. We don't know how to hold women accountable. And this is not limited to Black America. This is actually a larger issue. Do you know in this country that on average, men actually get sentenced 65% more for the same crimes that women commit? We do not know how to hold women accountable beyond just the Black community. This is a larger issue, even though I do think the Black community has a whole different issue, a whole different framework that we need to get into. But I'm saying in a larger context, we don't know how to do it. And I think we're demonstrating that when we try to have these discussions, and it keeps coming back to some kind of dismissal of Black men's statements or an ad hominem attack on who's speaking or Black men overall.
Welcome back to the channel. And you guys just heard from Dr. T. Hassan Johnson, all right? And this was a video that I found. I'm not sure really how to say this guy's name, but I think it's Amoweli Africa. I think that is his channel. So he had that particular information up. And I loved actually what that particular gentleman said, Dr. Johnson. One of the things that I've been saying over and over again on this channel, what we're dealing with continuously is we're dealing with media. And he actually said it, media and the narrative. He talked about the narrative. And it is interesting because I think a lot of people don't think that this exists. I think that, people are kind of blind, to the way the world works. All right. And advertisement, people spend literally billions, if not trillions of dollars every year in advertisement. And why do they spend this money? Okay, they spend this money to sway your opinions. But what people have started to learn and understand, that's why I talk a lot about product placement. Okay, in movies, what people understand is when someone is watching something and they're watching it for a long period of time, they associate with what they're watching. And after a certain level of association, they want to connect with said thing. There was a gentleman that actually had a workout type of studio. I forgot what state it was in, but he actually had a small YouTube channel. And when I was first starting to learn about my YouTube channel and trying to figure out, how to get it out there, what I should be doing, what's the frequency, blah, blah, blah. I just remember him talking about, certain things that he had done. And he said one thing that he kind of stumbled upon by mistake was actually that he actually wore a shirt every single day. And it was just the shirt for, his particular gym, the fitness gym, that he was basically, at, right? He literally owned that gym. So he just had his t-shirt on. It was nothing major. It was a black t-shirt with his logo, and that was it. But he said that after about a year of, putting out videos, here, there, and everywhere, what ended up happening was many of the people that followed him who were not in his state actually requested, could they get a t-shirt? And so he was kind of taken back about it, but he ended up ordering like 250 t-shirts. And he talked about how they sold out, in a few days, because all of the people that were watching him with a certain t-shirt on, they wanted that t-shirt because they were associating themselves with him and with his content. And this was a guy who wasn't even trying to do it. We have to understand how powerful media is. If every single time you look at media, you see a black man disrespecting a black woman, you see a black man without a job, you see a black woman shaking her neck with long fingernails like a foot long, and all these types of things, what happens? You associate that with all black people, especially if you're not a black person. And even though black women might be right next to black men and black men might be right next to black women, like literally doing life with them, when you see that behavior over and over and over again, it encourages you to think that the other side, even though you're sitting right next to them, even though you might be married to them, you be looking at TV, and then a man is seeing the woman doing all of this and being all, ratchet and stuff. And then he like, I know I've been married to you for 20 years, but you just seem a little bit more ratchet to me today. Just a little bit more ratchet. Just a little bit. And see, that is real. It's real. And I don't think that we can undervalue that power of media, right? And so, like I said, what Dr. Johnson was trying to say is, again, black women have a narrative that they're pushing. And you have to ask, okay, who are these black women? Well, it's all about money. It's about money. If somebody has a show, okay, like The Talk, and you have these 5 black women or however many, I'm not really sure, that are sitting up there on The Talk, who's watching them? Who's primarily watching them? Probably black women, Latino women, maybe a few white women who might want to date black men, or at least they don't mind. These are probably the people that are watching their show. Okay, so when they start to talk about things on their show, they might think it's relevant. And I don't necessarily think that the people literally on the panel really know or understand, but it's the producers. It's the producers that are behind the scenes. They're looking through and they're trying to find out, okay, what's hot? What's a hot subject? What's a hot topic? And when they find that, that's what they push out. And I've tried to, let you all know that follow me. Even when I pick titles for my videos, I pick them based off of what works. Okay? If I put the real reason why, black women and black men are having a really hard time finding each other and finding pure bliss love, nobody's going to click on that. They just don't. All right? And like I said, I've challenged all of you, to look through your own feeds, to think about the videos that you click on. And it's generally the titles that spark curiosity, the titles that evoke emotion. Okay, that's what you're clicking on. And so what it shows is that media is actually working on you. It's not just the thumbnail, it's just not just the title, it is the evoke of emotion, right? So when you start to talk about a broken system of black love, all right, because it's broken right now, that means more people are in their emotions about it. And because they're in their emotions, there's more money to be made. See, again, I'm constantly trying to tell you guys about politicians and people with money. And what they do is always, let's show them, it's like a magic trick. Let's show them something emotional while we're doing something else behind the scenes. Here's where we're making our money. They don't see that because that's behind our back. But we're just going to give them something emotional. Give them something to rile them up. Give them something to talk about for the next 2 or 3 months while we go and make this money doing something that we don't want them to see. Right? And that's why I'm always encouraging you all to use your mind. You know, even in the dating process has been so romanticized that if for many women, they find it very hard to date normal men, which is probably what most of, the people are watching, all these normal men. But then you have all these women who are looking for a romanticized version of a man. And then when they get the normal man, they think the normal man is boring. They think he's dull. They think, I don't want him. And back to, Dr. Johnson's point, you're in a situation now, which we've talked about so many times on this channel, where you got most women, as people say, up to 80% chasing very few. Okay, again, we talk about it, 20%. And then of that 20%, when we really analyze that 20%, we find it's not necessarily the tall men. It's not necessarily the good looking men or the men that have all the money. It's generally they have personalities that tend to line up and be more romanticized. So men that are a lot more playeristic, men who are very good with women really because they have practice, not because they're nice men. In fact, it's almost to the point where that top 20% is almost like you really don't need to talk to any man that's in that top 20%. Because the way that we have romanticized it, we romanticize men that don't do women well, that don't take care of women, that aren't nice to women, that are mean to women. And then we wonder why so many women say, I have a hard time finding a man. Once we look at that, and then we start to recognize the way women generally date, which is it's more of a wait and see type of situation. It's almost like they're Rapunzel, in their tower of their life, going through their life. They're out there. They're moving and grooving. They're at the grocery store. They're at the mall. Okay, they might go to a restaurant. They might go to a party here and there. But if there's not a man to pluck them out at the right place, right time, they continue down this path. And that's why for me, I'm always trying to encourage women to get off that path. I'm not against you doing that path every day, okay, because, that's your life, but try to do things outside of it, especially if you're introverted, so that you can get in front of more men. And then when you're in front of those men, do your best that when they say hello, say hello. I'm not saying if they're rude or mean or nasty or weird or, girl, what's your problem? And F you and all. No, leave that dude alone. Okay, if he's disrespectful, leave him alone. Okay, but if he's generally trying to be a decent guy, he's trying to make normal conversation, have conversation. Okay, 10, 15 minutes. If he looks halfway decent, 10, 15 minutes. And for the men, it's almost the same thing. You've got to get yourself around really great women. You can't go to the club. Like, again, I always talk about the media, and I even talk about it for the men. There are so many videos where men are going up to women on the street, okay, and they'll pull out their cell phone or whatever it is, and then they'll talk to these women. And then you'll see almost all these women going to the club. They almost always on some strip. They might, find them at a mall or something like that, but they don't find them necessarily at the grocery store. They're not standing in front of a church. Where they are is in places where they know the emotional impact is going to hit harder. Okay? And that's why I say it's a narrative. Yes, are there women out there that are just absolutely rude, self-centered, and totally just female jerks? Yes, there's plenty of them. Okay, but why are you as a man, why are you in those places? You shouldn't be in those places. And then you won't run into those women. And same thing for women. Women shouldn't be in certain places and they won't run into those men. But I'll admit we have to find more places where quote unquote good men and women can find each other. But let's get back, to the point here. Okay, and the main point was black women, this is the name of the video, black women are not marrying down, a heated debate, right? So that's the whole thing. Are black women marrying down? Again, that's going to be all about how you see those terms, marrying down. I've always talked about you're only going to get about 70% of what you want. But the concept here of marrying down is all really in the woman's head and or the man's head. For example, I've talked a little bit about dating older, like for women to date older. And there was actually a video I did where a woman talked about how she dated a man and married him, and he was about 11 years her senior. And she actually, in her mind, that was marrying down. A lot of people beat up her in that video for other reasons, but they didn't really pay attention to the whole concept of when she said and was talking about how, girl, I just had to get me one. And, so I just ended up marrying a guy that was like 10 years older. When she said that, she was really, in a way, saying she married down, because she was saying that's not what she wanted. She did not want a guy that was 10 years older than her, or 11, or however many years older the guy was. So she almost saw it as marrying down. But again, that was in her perspective. There are other women that all they've ever dated has been older men. One of the women, like I said, because you guys know that I am, out here dating. And one lady I dated, she said almost all the men she's dated have been about 9 to 11 years older than her. And she, talked to me about the fact that she almost always had really great success. That's not to say all older guys are great, because anybody can be a jerk, all right? But one of the things that she had noticed was the ones that she was able to find, the guys were actually nicer, better, more respectful, and they were gentlemen. But I think one of the things that helped her, which is one of the things that I talk about every once in a while, is that many times we might be in a rut and we tend to like a certain type of personality. And so what happens is we're constantly going after that energy without even knowing it. So many times, if you force yourself to deal with an energy you're not used to, it makes you change, and you're able to kind of see a little bit more clearly the energy of the person and the way that they move, and so you can get around a lot of problems, right? See, some black women do this when they date white men. Right? Because they're dating white men, the energy is different. And so now they can kind of see the red flags easier. Does this make sense? And so that, I think, that can work, for women that are dating older men if they've never dated older men before. But again, you still have to vet the man. I'm never going to say that you should not vet him. You have to vet him. You cannot assume that just because he came from XYZ background that he has a certain level of respect and dignity to him, and vice versa for the men to the women. Everybody, you have to talk to them. You got to figure them out. And like I said before, sometimes you need to ask questions and then just chill and just let them talk. And then when they come to a pause in the conversation, wait 3 to 4 seconds before you say anything, because sometimes people pick right back up. And then they'll give you secret stuff that's really on their mind. And see, that's how that secret stuff come out, because it's really back there on their mind. It's just that they don't want to say it. But then if you give them that extra second, it just comes on out their mouth, and they don't even recognize that they're saying it. Okay, and so now it gives you a little bit more insight to who they are, okay, and what they're about. So don't be so quick, like I said, to jump into a conversation. Allow people to talk, okay? Allow people to talk. So again, this whole concept of marrying down is in your perspective. In your perspective. It's the same thing if a woman says, I want a tall man. I want a man that makes 6 figures. Okay, I know a guy right now, he's not tall. He's actually shorter than me. Okay, and this dude is, and he's a little older, for some of the ladies, he's a little older because he's like 45. But he's a little bit shorter than me. He's 45. But this dude is knocking on a millionaire, right now. He is knocking on. He's going to be like another friend that I know that's a millionaire. All right. And so some women are out here and they're trying to chase that 6'2" dude. But you got this other guy who has literally it all together. He's actually very personable. He's fun. He's a good guy. He loves God, the whole 9 yards, and is about to be a millionaire at 45. Yeah, you see what I'm saying? Some women might think that they're settling just because they're concerned about height. And that's why I say you have to have realistic expectations. The average man, okay, is 5'9". We've talked about this before. The average woman, I think, is like 5'3", 5'4". Okay, that is average. So if you're a woman and you're taller than that, you're tall. All right, and if you're a woman and you're like 5 foot even, you are short. Okay, that's how that works. But the reason why I'm telling you guys all this is because, see, the narrative in media will get you confused. And then your expectations get off. See, if a lot of women had average expectations to say, okay, I'm going to come out, I want to meet a guy who makes over $50,000 a year, who treats me nice, who's a Christian, okay, who I can build with, then you got a whole different world of men. Even if a woman says, okay, I want a guy who's college educated, he makes over $60,000 a year. He's, again, 5'9", he's a Christian, he loves God, blah, 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 blah. You got a lot of men, lots of men. Okay, but as you start to say, okay, I want him 6 foot, I want him college educated, I want him to make 6 figures, I want that. Now you're starting to run out of men. Because every time you do big jumps, you're losing men. And it's the same thing for guys to women. If a man is coming out and he's like, I want a woman that's a size 4 and she's got to be 5'5", and I want her to be, truly Christian, super submissive with no children at 32 and never been in a relationship or only been in 2 relationships, then you're running out of women real quick. Okay, because you're asking for a lot. And then that person has to still like you for you. Which I'm always encouraging you guys to find. Not just find somebody you can get along with. Not just find a person who has the same similar future with you. Because I found, like I told you, I found plenty of women like that. But we weren't friends. And there wasn't friendship energy there. So you have to have friendship energy. You have to have a similar future. Okay, you need a slightly similar background, or you need to be willing to do the work because you didn't have that background. All right, but then you have to be realistic. Like I've been realistic. Like I'm being real with the women. Like even though like you guys have heard me say before, I'm like 5'8.5". Okay, any day of the week. Most of the women, like I said, I'm not going to lie about it. I mean, most of the women that come to me are between 5 foot all the way up to probably about 5'5". I mean, that's most of the women that I end up dating. All right. But if I ran into a woman that was 5'7" and she wanted to date me, I would date her. And just like a lot of women say, I really want a man to be taller than me and blah, 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 blah. Men, ladies, we love the feeling of a small woman. We do. Okay. That's why there's so many diet pills out here and all these diets and all this other kind of stuff for women. All right. Because women know, even at a subconscious level, that men prefer smaller women. Same thing. Women prefer bigger men, either taller or, bigger, like literally just a, wider with more muscles or whatever it is. So we have the same feeling, when we are with a smaller woman. So let's not play that game. So when I'm with a woman that's 5'7", she's up here with me. Okay. And then if she wants to wear heels or anything like that, then because I like a woman in 3-inch heels. So now she's looking at, well, she's going to be 5'10". She's going to be looking dead over my head. Well, maybe not at my head, but probably at my forehead. And she might not feel comfortable with that. All right. And then even for me, hugging her or whatever, it doesn't feel the same. But guess what? Let me meet a woman that has a really great personality that matches mine, that I think is attractive, that has everything that I'm looking for, that wants the same future. And the only thing I have to deal with is an extra 2 or 3 inches. oh, we ain't gonna have that problem. You know, I can work with that. And I guess that, see, that's the point I'm trying to make. You're not going to get everything. You're not going to get everything. And so I'm trying to encourage the women out here and the men out here not to even look for everything. Look for most of everything. But most importantly, make sure they treat you well. They treat you well. Nobody should be disrespecting you. Nobody should be hurting you. Nobody should be, you know, doing just evil things. And we have to get to this point of kindness to each other. We have to get to this point of doing for each other. We have to treat each other well. So anyway, really liked that, you know, that he had to say. And again, I'm always fighting against these narratives. Y'all know that's part of what I do out here, but I'm all about marriage. There's a lot of stuff in the comments. Please check that out. And I'm going to see you all in the very next video. Oh, like and subscribe. See you all later.